Before you press play, I have one question. Do you believe history always tells the truth, or does history simply tell the story of those who won? Tonight, you are not just a listener, you are the jury. Every episode, we reopen one case the world thought was closed, not to rewrite history, but to question it. Lilia brings the research. Cady Stanton brings the law. Frida Kahlo brings the colors hidden inside every soul. Together, we investigate the heroes, the villains, the forgotten, and the misunderstood. Listen carefully. Every document, every witness, every argument may change your verdict. The music will guide your emotions, but the decision belongs to you.
So close your eyes.
So close your eyes.
Open your mind.
Open your mind.
Question everything.
Because history is about to take the witness stand. Welcome to History on Trial, where history closed the file and justice opens it again. Stay tuned. Subscribe to Lilia Soundtracks. The next trial is about to begin. Lilia's office was covered with open books, historical maps, and a huge whiteboard filled with names. Hypatia, Galileo, Giordano Bruno, Miguel Servet, Antoine Lavoisier. The silence was absolute. Elizabeth looked at the board with her arms crossed. Lilia, remember that everyone can see these videos. History cannot be stated without evidence. We must also allow people to let their imaginations soar. Frida picked up a glass, raised it slowly, and smiled. I need more tequila for this conversation. The three of them laughed. Lilia walked toward the board. Frida, you will draw the portraits at the end of each story. You will explain why you chose each color, what each brushstroke represents, and what emotion you hid in the character. Frida gave a small theatrical bow that I know how to do. Lilia turned to Elizabeth. And you will defend the case. I want you to give us the legal perspective of each story. You are an extraordinary woman, and people believe in you. Elizabeth smiled humbly. It will be an honor. Lilia took a deep breath. And me? She approached a mountain of books. She slowly ran her hand over them. I will do what I have done all my life. Research, search for documents, read letters, compare versions, find the truth, only this time. I don't want everything I've studied to stay in my mind. I want history to come alive again. I want people to know these individuals as if they were sitting here with us. Elizabeth nodded slowly. So, who will be the first person whose case you want me to defend? The room fell silent. Lilia picked up a marker. She wrote a single name in the center of the board. No one spoke for several seconds. Frida looked at the name. Then she looked at Elizabeth, then back at Lilia. She slowly set her glass down on the table. No, this is no longer a project. This is a trial against history. She paused. Then she burst into loud laughter. Now I really need several bottles of tequila. She wiped away a tear from laughing so hard. Lilia, now you've truly lost your mind. The three of them laughed again, but Elizabeth, was not laughing. She kept staring at the name written on the board. Her expression had changed, as if she had just understood something. Very slowly, she said, "Lilia, if we reopen the case of Joan of Arc, we will have to judge those who condemned her again." The silence returned. A draft of air slightly opened one of the windows. The pages of an old book began to turn on their own. No one touched them. Frida stopped smiling. Elizabeth slowly closed the folder she held in her hands, and Lilia, without taking her eyes off the name on the board, whispered, "Then, let the first trial in history begin again." In a room full of books, candles, and forgotten names, 3 women opened a case history thought was closed. Elizabeth, listen carefully. This was not just a girl. This was not just a war. This was a child sent into a world where kings used prayers and judges used fear. Her name was Joan, Joan of Arc, a young girl with a fire in her soul, a voice in her heart, and a country breaking apart. She carried no crown, but kings listened. She held no throne, but armies followed. She was brave enough to walk into battle, and innocent enough to believe justice would protect her. But justice did not come. They captured her, they questioned her, they trapped her with words. They called her dangerous because she believed. They called her guilty because she would not bow. And when they could not defeat her courage, they burned her body. But they forgot one thing: fire can kill a person, but it cannot kill a story. Then I will defend her. I stand for Joan of Arc. I object to the court that judged her. I object to the men who feared her. I object to the politics hidden behind religion. I object to a trial where power wore the mask of law. Where was her protection? Where was her fair hearing? Where was the mercy they preached? They did not try Joan because she was wrong. They tried Joan because she was powerful. They feared her voice, they feared her courage. They feared a young woman who walked into history and refused to ask permission. This was not justice, this was punishment. This was not law, this was control. And today, before history, I say her name again. Joan of Arc was not the criminal. She was the evidence against the criminals. Hey, Lilia, I told you this needed tequila, but now I understand. I painted her pain in crimson because blood remembers. I painted her faith in white because even in smoke her spirit stayed clean. I gave her gold for the courage of a girl who stood taller than kings. I gave her blue for the sky she looked at when the earth betrayed her. I gave her black for the men who judged her with darkness in their hearts, and orange. Orange for the fire, but not the fire that killed her. No, the fire that made her immortal. So let the record show, Joan was not defeated. She was silenced, but only for a moment. Because tonight we open the file again. Elizabeth brings the law, Frida brings the colors, and I bring the research together. We call history back to the witness stand. Case closed? No, not even close. Justice begins when memory returns. The fire ended her life, but the story is still burning. France, a nation starving, a palace overflowing with luxury, a teenage queen blamed for the collapse of an empire. But tonight, we reopen her case. Elizabeth, before you prepare your defense, listen to the evidence. Marie Antoinette was only 14 years old. When politics chose her future, she did not choose France. France chose her. She left her family, her language, her friends, and crossed Europe to marry a prince she barely knew. Imagine placing an entire kingdom into the hands of a frightened teenager, then blaming her. When everything falls apart,
History called her careless.
history called her selfish,
History called her
Madam Deficit. But history rarely asks, who taught her? Who guided her? Who protected her? A child cannot build a kingdom alone. Neither can she destroy one alone. So tonight, I ask a different question. Who was really on trial? The Queen, or an entire political system already collapsing? Then I rise for the defense. Ladies and gentlemen, you accuse a young woman of crimes committed by generations. You handed a crown to a teenager. You surrounded her with powerful ministers, experienced nobles, wealthy bankers, and ambitious politicians. Yet when the kingdom failed, you blamed the youngest person in the room. That is not justice. That is convenience. A government cannot hide behind the face of one woman. A nation cannot erase decades of debt by executing a queen. Justice demands responsibility, not revenge. Did she make mistakes? Of course, she was human. But mistakes are not proof of every accusation. Ask yourselves, was she judged by evidence or by anger? Was she sentenced by law or by fear? History should never become a courtroom where emotions replace truth. Today, I do not ask you to love Marie Antoinette. I ask you to judge her fairly. Now, let me tell you
what colors I found inside her soul.
pearl white for the innocence stolen from a girl. Before she even understood what a crown meant, soft pink for the childhood she never had, royal blue for the loneliness of living in a country that never truly accepted her, gold for the heavy crown that glittered outside but weighed like iron within, gray for the rumors that became stronger than the truth, crimson for the blood that history can never erase, black for betrayal, not by strangers, but by those who once bowed before her, and finally, light, because even after the guillotine, people still speak her name. That is a color death cannot paint over.
History is not about choosing heroes
Or villains. It is about asking better questions.
The verdict belongs to history.
Justice belongs to every generation willing to look again. Every portrait has two faces, the one history painted, and the one we never stop looking for. The file is closed, but the debate has only begun. Next trial
Coming soon.
Washington, D.C. The guns had fallen silent. The Civil War was ending then. President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. A grieving nation demanded justice, but in its search for answers, did justice become revenge? Tonight, Lilia reopens one of America's most controversial trials. Elizabeth.
I
Barely slept. This case,
don't have
enough evidence. Not enough to feel certain. Her name was Mary Surratt. A widow, a boarding house owner, a mother. Her home became a meeting place for men connected to the conspiracy that ended President Lincoln's life. But that's just it. Was she part of the plot? Did she know? Or was she condemned because others used her home? History still argues, and the more I look, the less clear it becomes. But one fact remains. She became the first woman executed by the United States federal government. Tonight, we examine what little evidence we have and what might be missing. Then I rise for the defense. Ladies and gentlemen, justice is never measured by the size of a nation's anger. It is measured by the fairness of its trial. Mary Surratt stood before a military commission, not a civilian jury, at a time when the nation was wounded, when emotions filled every courtroom. Ask yourselves, can justice remain impartial when grief demands someone to blame? Were all legal protections fully honored? Was every doubt explored? Did the verdict rest only on evidence, or also on fear, urgency, and the desperate need to close a national tragedy? I do not ask you to declare Mary Surratt innocent. I ask something greater. I ask whether history can honestly say that every reasonable doubt was answered. Because once an execution is carried out, there is no appeal, no second chance, no new evidence. Justice must be certain before it becomes irreversible. I painted Mary with 7 colors: gray for uncertainty, black for the shadow that followed her name,
deep blue
for a mother watching her family disappear,
brown
for the wooden boarding house where history changed forever,
crimson
for a nation bleeding after Lincoln's death,
white
for the questions that never found complete answers, and silver
for doubt
because doubt never dies. It reflects every generation, asking the same question again.
History
Remembers the assassination,
but history
also remembers the trial. And standing here with messy notes and cold coffee, I still don't know if we have enough to be sure. Sometimes the greatest mystery is not who committed the crime, but whether justice was carried out fairly.
justice is strongest
When it protects the unpopular,
the accused
and even those history has already judged. Because if fairness disappears, anyone can become the next defendant.
Tonight we reopen the case of Mary Surratt,
Not to rewrite history, but to ask the questions history still cannot answer. Next trial coming soon. Next trial coming soon. The road was quiet. But history was waiting. At the next bus stop, Forrest looked at Lilia and said, "Come on, let's get on the bus." The doors opened, and suddenly, the scandal began. Forrest, do you feel that? This is not just a bus. This is a courtroom on wheels. This is a nation about to be tested. People stepped inside, coins dropped, feet moved, the engine trembled. Then the driver looked back and pointed, "Stand up." But one woman did not move. Elizabeth! Frida! Look, that woman is Rosa Parks, and she is not just sitting down, she is standing up with her soul. Then we have work to do, because when the law protects humiliation, the law itself must be put on trial. Rosa Parks did not break justice, she exposed injustice. She did not create disorder, she revealed the disorder already living inside the system. A woman sitting peacefully became more powerful than 1,000 speeches, because dignity does not need permission. Hey, Lilia, this bus is full of pain. I see the colors already brown. For the seat where history sat down, black. For the shadow of oppression, red. For the anger of a people tired of being pushed back, blue. For the sorrow carried in silence, gold. For courage, and white. For the calm face of a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. I thought we were just taking a ride. No, Forrest. Sometimes history does not arrive on a horse, or in a palace, or on a battlefield. Sometimes history arrives on a bus. The bus doors closed. The street went silent. One woman remained seated, and the world began to move. Elizabeth, Frida, seems like we have more work to do. Stay tuned and subscribe to Lilia Soundtracks. Because here, any song can become a saga.
Hi, girls. Looks like you had a long day. You look like lawyers. I have to say, I like lawyers. A good lawyer listens before judging. My name's Forrest. People judged me my whole life. Some thought I wasn't smart. They were wrong. I just saw the world differently. A different mind isn't a lesser mind. Sometimes it simply sees what others miss. Maybe that's why your trials matter. Every person deserves to be understood before being judged. That's exactly why we'll be back with more historical trials, more stories, and more voices. Stay tuned and subscribe to Lilia Soundtracks.